The caveat is that they're all connected. So shadows kind
Yeah,
of feed from one another in the end, and the gifts feed from one another. It's almost like you tap into the shadow, you turn them all on across the board, and it
yeah.
depends. No matter what key you have your shadow in.
People like you that are enabling great change for others, and just your presence, and just your being. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a celebrity to do it either. You could just be walking down the street or sitting in a room.
Yeah, and you're making the difference.
How can I contribute something?
Hmm.
And that's a big fear too. It's like, oh, I'm going to change my city or my town or my country. Like, yeah, it's possible. It starts with one person.
Hmm.
Gene Key 6. Conflict, diplomacy, peace. Every human being is emotionally vulnerable until we drop our protective defenses. The defenses form around our heart, and as long as our hearts remain defended and closed, they can't heal.
I think it's very appropriate that we talk about the sixth gene key, which lives in the shadow of conflict between sexes, female and male. And I'll let you open this.
Yeah. It's one that I think we all feel in the shadow state. So the conflict and the battle of the sexes and how it shows up. And it's interesting how in many of our bonds, we wind up with a partner who kind of catalyzes our own development through revealing to us our own shadows or being a mirror to the things that we've kept hidden. And how that's shown up for me personally is for Carly being more cold, kind of shutting down her emotional side, and then and kind of running from conflict. That's shown to me my own, like if she's truly stepped into this higher state of being and being at peace with who she is and being at peace with nature, then I find myself just chasing after something, like chasing after her, or like wanting to have like this discussion or wanting to have more conflict, like dredge up some kind of feelings. Because for me, that's that's where I developed a sense of security at a young age was you're being neglected. So if you can even have negative emotions or imprinting around you, then you know you're alive. Like this feeling of being alive, being seen, even if it doesn't mean a positive outcome for my immediate environment. So those are my initial thoughts. I'm just curious to hear what you think.
Mm. I find it so here I have actually a note. If you don't have this key, does it apply to you? And what you just said is that applies to everyone on one or the other level. And it ties back down to our emotional maturity, our emotional states of our being, which ties back down to understanding of our emotions and what triggers them, what are they, how we perceive them, and where are the triggers coming from, is my understanding of it. And we live in a times where the the abyss between sexes is just becoming bigger and bigger, and more misunderstanding and disconnection between the two happens, and it's all because independently as its own sovereign individuals, both have emotions and both of them are valid, but both need to be working on them rather than looking for the other to help us with it, right? So how I understood this sixth shadow of conflict is, even though we say that we have both energies within us and both of them want to dominate one or the other way, we are also now reflecting the same dominance against the other, which comes with projections, which comes with then attack back to our own self, just because we don't understand them. And to be honest, understanding this conflict on emotional level that can take over your life will is we lack the definition of emotions. We lack to explain them to ourselves. Rather than feeling them, we lack in language, we lack the ability to actually define them for what they are by trying to define them by language rather than sitting with them.
Yeah.
And really not defining them at all. And rather than feeling them and allowing them to process and open and close and open and close and figure out its own. I almost see them as their own entities that want to express one or the other way. So it can be through fear, through cry, through sadness, through anger. So now the vehicle of the body is really what we need to transfer this through: punching the pillow, going for a ride, sitting in silence, crying. That we get to use our body to actually express this one or the other way rather than using our tongue.
Yeah.
Because this ultimately does the disgrace of what we are truly, truly feeling independently, especially as independent sovereign, and also as the opposite of the other that we're in conflict with.
Yeah. Yeah, I get the sense of feeling when I listen to the way you're describing it, like a funnel, and the raw emotion and feeling is at the top, and then at the bottom is like this language model that we use to express, and we try to fit all of that stuff that's in there out into this output and try to express it so that we can ultimately feel a sense of connection and relatability. And it's more true to ourselves and to the outcome that we actually want is if we just, like you said, sit with it, express it, because others can then sympathize at a level that's beyond words.
Sometimes hug does it. Nothing else other than just hug and chakra to chakra.
Yeah.
You know, just holding speaks volumes rather than trying to explain. This is the trap.
Yeah,
this
right.
thing is trapping us. So I highlighted one thing here, which I think you and I as Pisces, and by the way, happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Oh my God, I just realized it was your birthday a couple days ago. Or a couple weeks.
Yours is the 22nd, 23rd?
26th.
26th. Okay. Yeah, mine's the 21st.
Kind of, we missed it, but oh well. There's one thing that I highlighted here. I think you and I will have a lot to say on it just because we're Pisces. As long as you surrender your will to the emotional system, then you will be trapped by its volatile nature.
Is there a second line to that? If for some reason it feels...
It doesn't feel complete. Let me read pre-line. Conflict breaks out whenever the two people agree to identify with their emotional states. As long as you surrender your will to the emotional system, you will be trapped by its volatile nature.
Okay. Yeah, it's like the paradox of surrender, right? We have to... It's just like getting caught in a wave that we weren't planning for it. It was too big, and the safest thing you can do is just allow the wave to roll you and move you however, or like a car accident, you know, it's just like if you can surrender, you'll be far more likely to not get hurt. But if you resist and try to control it, you'll get quite hurt.
Gosh, I love the metaphor. You just
Yeah.
got pounded by waves, slash, by
Yeah.
emotions. Damn, that's so true. I gotta tell you a story. When I went to Costa Rica, first time ever I got pounded, which was during the New Year. And I thought this like the beach went like this and then high deep down, right? So you just disappear. Your earth disappears below you to the next wave. I mean next step.
Yeah.
And I underestimated my strength. The waves were huge. And I also thought that I'm faster than the waves, and my mind just tricked me. And I was like, now, not now. And I got caught in literally between split second, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
And I got pounded. But because I knew to surrender, I actually got to just slide it up
Yeah.
on my front.
Yeah.
On my front. And I was like, oh my God. My God, right? I started touching. I was like, I just went pounded back down and I relaxed. And then literally I closed my eyes. I didn't know where I was going. And it just slid me all the way up to pushed me out. It kind of spit me out from get the fuck out of here. Oh,
Yeah. And much like playing in the ocean with those waves, there's levels to it. So when we are faced with an emotion or conflict that we feel we have to resolve, there's a level of surrender that we can step into. And then it feels like, oh, I've done enough. I'm all done now.
hmm.
And if you're not watching, there'll be another wave. It'll catch you. It'll catch you when you're making your way out. So don't turn your back. That's the rule. Don't turn your back on the ocean.
Yeah, she will snap you. So, do you feel the emotional states are like waves? They come in three.
Yeah, there's definitely like a pattern. And then there's a trap of trying to identify the pattern, right? And I think there's patterns that exist beyond our comprehension that we are prey to. So we might be able to identify like, okay, I had an emotional state, or this is a difficult time in my life. There's probably going to be two more, or like a group. So let me prepare myself. And what might happen is you might be at a state of like, no, this only comes once every 19 years. So get ready.
Oh.
You know, or it might be like, you're special. This is just every 300 years and you're just one of the humans that's here. So all that to say, the trap of being able to like identify it and then plan for it, it's like you're not surrendering in that moment. Maybe it's 3, or maybe it's just the 1, or maybe it's 7.
I love emotions. And I think maybe I'm not ready to get rid of them. You know how, so for example, I looked at your Pearl sequence in your 7th key, and in Pearl in general, it says that everybody, so the Pearl to start realizing itself, we have to first pass the Venus sequence.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, I thought they all kind of, activate together at the same time, but really no. So when I am finding myself not being able to let go of certain things or not being able to comprehend them, I'm almost like certain that the sequence is yet to get activated. So
Yeah.
this shadow is interesting because it's like I don't have conflict within sexes. I do have emotions, and it's hard for me. I actually really never get in conflict with the opposite sex, which is interesting. And we blend, maybe because of the energies within, but I blend in with the males on any level much much easier than I would blend with feminine energy, right? So that's where the conflict is. But this specific sex battles of sexes is very non-gender related, if I can maybe think about it that way, rather than gender related. It says, if you have been emotionally repressed through shame or guilt or abuse, the entire culture within your being has been disturbed. And it's almost like this entire pH balance in your body is going to tell you you are in a state of dis-ease or not in ease, which is the pH balance related to this shadow. Any thoughts on that? I guess feeling sick in your stomach is really the pH disbalance, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, there's a lot that we could unpack on that. I want to hear the rest of your thought process first, where you're headed.
I almost feel like this is the energetic drop in energy that sometimes you just know that you're operating on the low frequency and the shadow frequency. Mm-hmm. And you know there's no easy way out of it. And it can't just happen as you wish to happen. I want to stop with it, or I want a fresh new day tomorrow. Yeah. It doesn't really happen like that. So once you dip down in it, you stay in until the chemical process of it kind of dissipates or disappears. We can't push ourselves. I always think of the shadow and gift as that two separate levels of frequencies that you can't just live in both at the same time, rather than when one happens, one you have to honor. You can't operate on the level of gift. You can't even see it or feel it or exist in it until your shadow has completed her own process. So once you deep into the low frequency, it's there. It's about the tools of understanding and really like figuring out this is what is happening, acknowledging it and being aware of it, that can help the process actually close correctly. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's true. And I think some of the difficulty comes in knowing where you should be, or at least having some sense of pressure of like, oh, I should have figured that out. Conflict, especially conflict of the sexes, or like the energies of feminine and masculine. I think I figured that out. So why am I stuck in it? Or like, what's happening that's trapping me? And then it's the difficulty of being like, okay, I'll figure it out once I get to the other side, instead of having this like, I guess what I'm getting at is it's probably easier your first time in to just be like, fuck, sucks. All right, I'm going to feel it, whatever it is. And then if you come out and you have an understanding, you can frame it, especially if we do this work all the time, or we meditate, or we go to workshops, we do all this stuff. We think we're supposed to have this stuff figured out. And then something comes up, it triggers us. It's like an invitation. And it's a bloody invitation. It's like, it's got your name on it, it's written in blood. So you're coming one way or another, you can choose to step in. And it's like this moment of, shit, like really? Like what do I have to learn there in conflict? But for me, what's coming up is like, just sometimes it's just the raw emotion can teach us so much. Just like the feeling of division that exists in the world and how we battle and wage war, and it's really sad. And it's really like futile and silly. But at the deepest level, it's very sad. So all that to say, for maybe someone that's listening, is, Milica and I, we get called into it too, and it's not the easiest thing. I think the best thing is having a friend that you can reach out to and just let them know what you're going through, and they'll hold space for you. And just that can be so transformative. They don't even have to give advice. They can just hold space for you, and you'll feel it. You'll feel that shift in yourself. Like, oh shit, you're not saying anything, but I can feel like a new sense of awareness, because the power of listening can change people. So.
And really, all we want is just to be heard.
Yeah, right.
If you really think about it, is that even in a battle of sexes, we want to be heard, and we want our emotions to be acknowledged and validated in one or the other way. It's like, you're not wrong for feeling this way. We're just feeling different, and both are valid. Both are very valid. It'll make me tear up, so don't do that. Oh, okay. You know what I also found really interesting in this shadow is that it does talk about sexuality a lot.
Yeah.
And it says, this is the deep irony of the sixth shadow. To bring an end to conflict, you have to give up your attraction to the opposite sex. Sex and war are deeply interrelated. This is a profound and perhaps disturbing truth for many people, and especially so because there's nothing we can do about it. Human sexuality can only be transcended through the physiological mutation, which is dependent on the extent of your connection to the higher planes of reality, which is physiological mutation. And physiologically, we're bound to be in war with sexes, because we want, physiologically, on a biological, deep down, profound level, we don't understand each other biologically. So to transcend each other's shadows into the gifts, only individual can do.
Yeah.
Only individual. And the sense of relationships and marriage or partnerships or any type of togetherness nowadays, it's very dependent or very attached or very insecure, because we can't let go, right? So there's a lot of in stake. There's a lot of things in stakes, which makes you even more chained, that you can't express what you're feeling, that you can't say what you can't even hear each other. But I think this is what I meant when I said, is that you're 55th. You are meant to design the new way. You're meant to bring the futuristic way of this, of anything. Business, partnership, entrepreneurship, marriage, all kinds. You have it within you. Somewhere there it sits, and it will come to the light sooner or later. You will come with the new way of doing a lot of things that right now may be operating on the shadow level, or even at the gift level. Your CD is freedom.
Yeah. And it's the gift.
Huge. And the gift. Oh, can't wait to get to that one. But what do you think about this sexuality and that specific aspect of this shadow?
It's very, very heavy. And my initial reaction is rejection or denial. Like no. And then just giving it a moment to settle, like it makes sense that in desiring anything, like you're desiring something that is not present within you. And in order to acquire it, you have to take, or in the current realm that we play in, there's no way to have like union of mind and body and spirit. at that level. So there's a innate shadow tendency to take what we can't have, and to take it in a way that we feel it's like just in sharing something, like even if it's totally mutual and agreed upon, there's still not an element of enmeshment. Like you can't really like Carly and I could get really, really close in like a spiritual union or a sexual union, or even just in our marriage, like in a whole. But there's some element of like, there won't ever be a point, or there's a point which I cannot cross. And so it's my choice whether to take from that point or to take beyond it and assume that it's my place and assume that it's my right and assume that I should know, or I can provide that space for that energy to exist and just to be different from who I am and what I'm experiencing. And then what I feel is the beauty in that providing space, and then having the separation and just an understanding, like, I'm not going to know what it's like to be you, and all this effort to know, to like fully know you, is wasted effort, when I could be in resonance and in union with the divine here in my male body, and all of my emotions that come through, all of my thoughts that come through, and then allow you to have union with the divine that's in you, and it's different, and I can't know it. And what happens, I feel, in that space is something like really unique. Like you can feel the electricity again. So yeah, I can only hint at it. Like I can't really finalize what I think is happening there, but it feels special. And I'm like, okay, now that I know that there's like a process, there's like an element of like letting go in this way, and then what comes in is beyond what I could create, it's beyond what I could take. It comes in on its own, and it's beautiful. And I'm like, oh, I want more of that. So it's like reminding me, don't forget what that felt like. And then can you have space? Can you let go of that need? We can call it codependency, but it's something that's like, it's not really sexual. It's much more of like just a human condition, like this desire to be seen and be heard, and to feel like a union where it's like there's no more emptiness.
I love it.
Yeah, I know. I can feel that you're in it. I'm trying to like force it for the audience that might be listening, that they could feel it or just sense like, okay, because it's a bit like rambling, but
no, this ties really, really nicely to the battle of sexes that will always be there. What I'll try to re-explain it from what I just heard from the female perspective. Is almost that if you feel it, it's often, well, not often, it's probably very mutual. That from the feminine perspective too, and a female body, we also might be feeling that there is this space that we will never fulfill in another, which is male. And that aim to fulfill it forever is us actually losing the battle and constantly fighting and being in war for, to know that the 100% of the other is ours, which is never going to happen. You are a sovereign individual. And as such, you have full authority only over yourself. And she, me, everybody else does independently as well. And no matter how much we're trying to explain or blend in or merge and have the urge to merge, we'll always feel the separateness of two. Because maybe that little mini spot is never going to get fulfilled. It's only ours. There's a saying, you should, and I don't know if this is true. I heard it. People always say, or it's a great advice in relationships. You should never give yourself 100% to the other. Keep something for yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but default, this is given by default. I won't be able to ever explain as the sovereign individual of what I really mean and feel to that extent for you to understand, especially if you are in such an opposite biological, physiological state. So acceptance of it all is really what maybe propels you to gift immediately and out of the shadow. Very well said. I love it.
Thank you.
Oh, I love it. Is it worth our even talking about the repressive and reactive natures of this shadow then?
Do you feel one more strongly?
I mean, we see it a lot in other people. I mean, we see it. Maybe we both. I was guilty of it as well. One or the other. This shadow, extreme sides of this shadow feel very natural or socially programmed for us to do, or instantaneously if we feel at risk or in fear of that we have to survive in survival mode of anything. So overreactive or repressive nature is over attentive, which translates to people pleasing just for the sake of whatever survival. And the reactive nature is tactless, which is the projecting of our emotions onto another. It's would you tell that this is very present in nowadays society?
Yeah, I know. This is an interesting one because to me it's not a clear break in one behavior or the other. I feel like most people have both. Where most people are over attentive for the majority of the time, and then in an explosive situation or when they feel like that's not working anymore, it's that reactive side. And I guess that maybe that points to the others where I can look at that, because what I used to see was like you're either repressive or you're reactive. But maybe it's just like a strategy where you mix it and match based on the situation. So for this one, it's like easy to be over attentive over long periods of time, kind of like a chronic situation. And then maybe someone throws you off your lid, right? You just become tactless all of a sudden.
Yeah. It's interesting that they tie it back in one of the sentences back to the emotional states that you learned when you navigated the puberty from 7 to 14. So it's almost like, oh, we as sovereigns, again, it's my favorite word nowadays, sovereign individual, have learned our coping mechanism to survive, because we needed something that probably was not given to us from this stage of our life, 7 to 14. I could barely even remember what happened 7 to 14. It was so emotionally unstable.
It's young. Yeah, it's young.
Yeah, but fun fact, I remember the toys and games I played before I turned 7, which was kindergarten, before I started school. And it's like, I don't even remember. Of course, I didn't know what the emotions are, but that's when I developed them. So these states often, for us to do the internal research or awareness of deep dive of our own emotional states and the shadows, is really diving into this stage of our lives, 7 to 14, to understand what happened. Why do we feel repressed? Why do we feel we're less or not worth or not enough or rejected or less or not important or not valuable or not lovable. I hear I'm not lovable a lot, especially in LA, and people at the at the matured age, and meet a lot of people here, because there's a lot of people here, of course, and they're very open. They speak a lot about themselves a lot too, so you get to hear a lot of stories of people feeling not lovable to the mature age, which stands from this emotional awareness. So interesting. Maybe we should be a requirement for us to do the quiz before we enter the relationship of what did you do? What were your emotional stage in 7 to 14? Oh, I wish we could do that.
Yeah, it's coming. It's like both and, right? Like, the world won't stop for us doing the work, but us doing the work will change the world. And all I can say is, like, if you're listening, thank you, because in a way you're allowing the seeds to grow.
Yeah. All righty. Gift. Diplomacy. This one is a good one. Tactics. What you got?
Okay. For a relationship to be healthy, there must be a balance of yin and yang, of receiving and giving, listening and expressing. Conflict ensues when this balance is lost. The sixth gift has the effect of instantly applying the required amount of give and take in order to maintain peacefulness. And I think diplomacy, for me, it sounds simple and it's harder in practice, because what it means is, like, you have a partner or a business partner or a friend, and they become very emotional about a subject, and it's one that you find you have a lot of understanding in. Like, it's not something that you're just like, okay, whatever you think. It's something that's, like, personal to you. Like, you feel like this, like, no, I know this front to back. I've studied it, or this is my life's work, or this is something I'm passionate about. And it just triggers the hell out of them, and they become very angry. Diplomacy in that moment means absorbing it. It doesn't mean, like, reflecting or walking away or putting them down and telling them to, like, go think about your feelings and come back. It's absorbing, and absorbing it is like, I'll take the blow for you, and then I'll come out and I'll still be sensitive and gentle, and then I'll come out after taking the blow, and we'll meet together without this sense of emotional conflict. There can still be conflict, but I'm going to absorb the emotion. And so, to me, that's something that's easier said than done. And people that are truly diplomatic are a gift to the world.
When you say absorb, do you have a sense of taking over this energy, or taking over the shadows of other?
I think it's just taking on the energy, because the shadows are theirs, and we can't be a martyr, right? We can't place ourselves at the, like, well, I'll die for you. You can walk on me, right? Or drive your car on me, so you can get across the bridge. But it's just a sense of, like, you're angry. I'm feeling that. Oh man, you're really angry. And then I'm gonna take that in. I'm gonna come back to you. I'm not gonna add my own piece to it on top of it. And that's the key. Is I should feel hurt and I should be sad. No, I'm gonna leave that at the door. I'm just gonna absorb your anger. I'm gonna come back to you.
Hmm. You're right on point when it says how I understood diplomacy is really a great skill of listening and knowing when to say your truth. So I highlighted 3 words: timing, honesty, and listening. And the honesty is really what that self-awareness for me is like. In order for me to be diplomatic, I really have to be true to myself. Who am I lying to? I can't lie to myself. This is truly who I am. And when you speak your truth, it's such a gentle truth about self. It never comes as, this is me. I need to go to war for it. It's always like, but no matter what, this is still me. Deep down, I'm honest.
Yeah.
You just get to hear it. And really diplomatically knowing when to speak your truth, you to be honest time-wise, because not everybody can take honesty at the time when they're not ready to hear it, which is what you're saying is that absorption of someone else's energy, which to me translates into just space holding or ability to listen someone else, which does not alter your honesty and who you truly are as authentic self.
Yeah.
I like this. I wish more people know how to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was pointing to is like on paper, if we're just scanning the gene keys and we're like, okay, conflict diplomacy, that sounds easy. We'll skip that one. It's like, truly diplomacy. Oh, just that alone would change the world, obviously. But I think part of why I'm kind of focusing on the word and why it seems simple is because diplomat or diplomatic, those are words that are all over and they have a million different expressions in the world today that it's one of those things of like, what does it even mean anymore? You don't really know because it had so many different representatives behind it. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I love that Richard uses very common words to describe them very differently and give them a super different meaning from what we know.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you're operating out of this gift, you can sense conflict in others before it even arises.
Ha! I wish. How cool would be to jump the gun actually and stop it?
Yeah. There's definitely been times when like, and it's interesting because it's like the repressive nature of the shadow is over attentive. So if you walked into a room with a bunch of people, you could be like, I'm going to be like James Bond, right? And figure everything out and calculate when this person's going to walk in the door. And then no, it's like, you're missing it, right? But if you relaxed and you allowed the gift to come through of diplomacy, you would just sense it in the room. Like you could just feel like tension. Like, oh, that guy's got a beef and he's aiming it over there. Okay. So if I can step in and then just tell a random story or be funny or, just dissolve the energy. There's so many opportunities with that, but just sensing it is a huge gift.
I really like so this gift of diplomacy is in the same codon ring as alchemy, and one of the other codon rings are my ring, which is the 40th gift of resolve. So the way this codon rings work, how I understand it, is that they kind of have to build on the top of each other. So the diplomacy is one of the gifts that actually is supposed to learn how to. I wish I can find a better word for destroy or synonym for destroy, but really to reinvent the relationships, emotional barriers between people, and learn how to dissolve the natural friction between sexes or between the opposites in general. Once they figure out how to do this on the gift level, then my gift of resolve, which is coming up with new ways, can come to the fruition. And more we dive into the jinkies like this, is like, and we start connecting how the codon rings of alchemy, for example, work together. It is so cool to see the massive amount of us actually working together without even knowing. So if I knew someone, so for example, you have the next one, but if we knew someone who has a sixth ring or a sixth key, and we can, when it operates on the shadow level of the super suppression or emotions taking over and not being able to understand them or control them, we know it's almost like halting the gift expansion of many different rings in the same chemical ring. So I know what my 40th means to me, where I get to break all traditional way of marriage and relationships. Like, call it idea. I have so many ideas. I can tell you as much, but I can't do shit until these people here on the way of diplomacy learn how to diplomatically be emotionally mature and use those emotions to really reinvent how we actually approach each other. And work specifically, there's a lot of this at work that is very, very predominant. And I find the battles all the time because I'm on the opposite side of the power. So it's very interesting to see that I can tell you a new way. Oh, I come up with many ideas, and I say, why don't we challenge the status quo? That's my last name. I would always say challenge the status quo. Sit in a warm room, bring a bunch of people, 14, 15, 30 of them, come up with the new ideas. There must be the other way. And they're all like, come on, there's no other way. We have to do it this way. Structure. So I cannot break the structure until these people become more emotionally mature in order to, So if you're listening on the call and you have this gift, break the old. You have full power to do so. The whole nother level is awaiting for you to become emotionally mature. A nice joke. I think we're all evolving almost together at the same time, and it's inevitable. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. But so there is a sense of like, there is hierarchy in the codon rings, or are you, like you saying 6 would come before 40, which would come before the next one?
This is how they describe it here as a part of chemical genetic family known as a ring of alchemy. This gift is playing a pivotal role in the transformation of the human species. This codon ring is formed by 4 keys, 6, 40, 47, 40, 64, and whose themes are diplomacy, resolve, transformation, transmutation, and imagination. This is a very powerful genetic grouping. The 6th gift is breaking down the barriers in human relationships. The 40th is forging this new openness into our communities, which is me. The 47th is allowing us to transform our old ways. And the 64th is opening us to a fresh set of possibilities for living in a new way.
Yeah. Okay.
So it sounds like the set of steps.
Yeah. In a way, I definitely, hearing like codon rings, I imagine like Olympic rings, like, they're attached.
Uh-huh.
And like I would hate for someone sitting at the 64th to be like, well, my last week on Earth, no one's done anything yet. So it's like, your imagination does help. It does contribute. Like maybe it gives someone space to be like, oh, okay, I have something to step into with diplomacy. It's like, I imagine holographic, like each impacts each other one.
Mm-hmm. Like what fires together, what wires together, fires together.
Yeah. And there's an element too, I don't want to dismiss what you're saying, like there are steps. I think, like you're saying, like your pearl isn't fully activated until you do your Venus sequence. I think it's like both. It's like yes, and it's like yes, you can change everything from just one sphere, but until you step in and really look at it, like because you know about it. So until you step in and look at it. So I think it's like, yes, the Quran rings all happened simultaneously, but I think, and maybe it's just in the third dimension, maybe they do step more logically and more thematically like that. Anyway, that's kind of a rabbit trail, but.
Is your 55th haunting you? I love your 55th.
Is it haunting me?
Uh-huh.
How so?
I don't know. Aren't you proud that you have 55th?
Oh, God. Yeah, it is a bit like trying to think of a good metaphor. I think of almost like a genetic gift that you carry like a burden in a way. Because the 55th, the shadow is victimization. And here's what happens. You go, aha, so I am victimized. And you go, shit. It's like you catch yourself in the act of playing out the shadow. And so the only thing, and then you have the gift and the city, both are freedom. And the only thing you can do is be like,
Fuck it.
Fuck it. Yeah, maybe there's nothing to figure out there. Maybe I'm not the victim. So it is a bit like a did you call it a, what word did you say? Cursed?
Fuck it.
Originally you're like, do you feel like, oh, haunted by the 55th?
Oh, haunted or proud. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I say fuck it, it's really just letting it flow.
Yeah.
I meaning like surrendering to the wave or the river.
Yeah.
Cosmic joke.
Cosmic joke.
Okay, cool. So let's move. Are you good with the gift? Shall we move to CD? Peace. This one is a good one.
Aren't they all? The ultimate defense is emptiness.
Paradox.
Defense maintains the illusion that we are separate. As such, it is truly futile because it protects against something that doesn't really exist in the first place.
Mm-hmm. I like this one. It, in short, how I understood it is the bot that everything that we know of will die. The body that we see will become see-through, and the chemical process that we are going to evolve into will dissolve. Will make our bodies dissolve, which will only leave the aura behind. And at that level, the very emptiness will become everythingness, which is peace, which will bring us ultimate peace. So he also explains that when people or sages or gurus, proclaimed gurus, get to the civic state of peace, they disintegrate, almost dissolve, which is what's called nowadays the ego death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or ascension or Buddhahood. I mean, there's different names for it. It's interesting. There are teachers that are non-dual. Have you heard of these teachers? So, Buddhists Zen teachers, Osho was one. But right now, it's interesting on YouTube, if you type in like non-dual enlightenment, you can find people all over the world that teach like, you are not two, you are one. You are not separate. There is nothing else. And it's interesting. It's like practical. I think it's called practical enlightenment, which is like, if you're going to contemplate spirituality, they teach this, and then you go about your normal life. But you do it with a sense of higher awareness that you're kind of living in this like illusionary land of make-believe where you are you, I am I, and we're not the same at all. And this isn't one soul. Because, and I bring it up because it's interesting, because I feel like that could be a way to bypass the work, some of the work that needs to get done. It's like, just skip all of that, because eventually I'll be unified with the whole, or the Atma, and be one in the unified field. But also too, to kind of point to the futility of doing all the work, especially when it's the addiction, when it's feeding the addiction itself. The addiction of separation. Like, okay, well then I'll do shadow work, and then I'll do my gene keys, and then I'll do human design, and then I'll go on this workshop on a retreat and figure myself out, and then I'll do a relationship course, figure that out. It's it is all just an addiction, and that's two sides of the same coin. You know, the very sad side of this existence is like existence fucking itself endlessly, just for the sake of fun, just for the sake of doing it. And we're addicted to that process. And then on the other side of the same coin, it's like this doing nothing and allowing, just letting it unfold.
I see. The paradox of it is like, do we do or do we don't?
Right. I think it's like, I think, therefore I am. Is it that? To be or not to be?
But I feel like almost like this is the thinking that is trapping us in the shadow of work. Is that if we're at the level of CB or such a high enlightenment, we wouldn't even think. So the whole point of thinking so back and forth and fighting and having this internal conflicts is really to let them go, so that we can get to a point where we don't get to do any of it.
Yeah.
And to imagine the collective is going, that what are our shadows now will not be our shadows in maybe 200 years. We will have a completely different layer of them. It's like recycled. Well, not recycled. It's like just cycles that end with the same layering, for the sake of really getting to everythingness from nothingness. Nothing that made sense to us, letting go or learning how to let go of really becomes everything. Getting to that state where these low level frequency of battles will not even exist. I just, the only thing is that we always point out above.
Yeah.
That is above rather than below. It's like, maybe it's like expansive to the left and right side.
Yeah.
So why does it have to be above? Damn it. There's gravity.
I really like the pointing in. And if you've done like a deep internal meditation where you just go in and you go deeply, you know, you think of like the atomic level and you go deeper, and you think of the smallest thing, you go deeper. You get to this point and it expands out.
Mm.
And it's just like, there's black holes within us, billions of black holes, each filled with galaxies.
Mm. There's
And
mhm. Okay.
it's just beautiful. I felt it.
There's this, I remember this story. I'll be really short in it. To get from this point to this point, I don't know if I told you this. Did I? I think it's
Go ahead.
really like
Worth
to
repeating.
that from this point to this point in anything in life or in present or future. First, we have to come halfway. From this point to this point, halfway. From this point to this point, halfway and halfway and halfway. And so there's no next step. Right? So the next step never exists because there's always a halfway before it, right? So it's almost like we're going to infinity by doing literally staying in one spot, which means we're staying in one spot, but yet we're coming closer to nothing out there because we always have to do halfway to it, halfway to it, halfway to it. I like the mind fuck about it. So same like the black hole within the black hole, but you gotta, there's another one in it and another one in it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You're never truly arriving.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Isn't that the point? Even at the city level, we really don't arrive.
Well, yeah, and I think the language arrival and point, and I think that disappeared. It's like we can taste it. We're playing in these. We're playing in these cities. We're playing in them. And I think the more we play and expound on them and share the feelings, I think the more that the world can experience them.
Mm-hmm.
But we should keep playing.
Keep going. The only way is forward, up, left, right. There's
Up,
so many
yeah.
ways.